we have somebody acting into the role currently in terms of overall finance and looking at the finance of the GHA, and that person is working incredibly well. So I think we have to look at what's needed in terms of the executive team for the future, look at that role and think about how do we fill it, if of course that we do fill it. So finance is really important. I'm a public servant. I recognise that we need to manage our resources and use our resources incredibly well. So whether it's through the finance director themselves or through all of our staff, because it's all of our responsibility, management of the GHA finances is important, and it's an important piece of the business.
And this month we've learned that a health financial advisor has been appointed, who is also the care agency finance director. Can you explain how that works from the health authority's perspective?
Well, that's a separate role to the GHA, and it's a role I wouldn't want to comment on, but it's separate to the GHA. What I can say is the GHA has its own acting director of finance, and the financial controls and the work in the GHA and finances will continue and will continue at a pace.
We've had John get in touch. He's among the listeners who think actually that I should invite you actually to comment, even though you said you don't want to comment, because GBC understands that this person is your spouse, and it gives rise to the suggestion, as John says, that there may have been a conflict of interest or that due process wasn't followed. What would you say to that suggestion?
So we've always been very clear. The person you're referring to is my spouse. We were always very clear and very open about that from right the way through all of the recruitment processes. But anything to do with that role needs to be directed to that individual. That individual is a very highly experienced professional in their own right, and any questions need to be directed to them.
But as Director General, you're satisfied that the processes that you would expect to be followed when recruiting senior people, that those processes were followed in this case?
As I said, I went through a very extensive recruitment process, and I'm happy with the recruitment process. Any further questions in relation to the other role need to be directed that way.
Was her appointment made as part of the negotiation for your appointment as chief executive, or was it a separate process?
So I went through, as an individual, a very, very extensive process. It started in round about this time last year and went on for many months. So I was appointed through a very open, transparent process, and my process was my process for the appointment into the role of Director General. It was in its own right.
And so then I suppose what you're saying by implication is that the other one is a separate process.
It's a separate process.